Okay, I'm Baxter Murray,
Alex King.
Don Sullivan.
Sean Huggins.
and we're going to talk about horse evolution, and specifically evolution of the horse hoof over time, and how it went from a smaller ancestor with multiple toes to the large horses of today that just have one singular hoof on each foot. We're going to start looking at the basic phylogenetic tree. They share an old common ancestor, and from there it experienced cladogenesis, starting with the Hyracotherium, which is like a very small multi-toed ancestor of the horse, and then it broke off into the Mesohippus, Merychippus, Pliohippus, and then the Equus. And the Equus is what the modern horse of today comes from, but it's also where the donkeys and zebras of today come from. They all came from that original Equus common ancestor. So basically, some fossil discoveries that have been found recently that help support this are, actually, before that, it's important to state that all these horses, although it looks like they went extinct over time, a lot of them could be found living in the same time period in relatively the same area. It's just the fact that all these horses were originally kind of evolved in North America, and then they migrated over to Europe and Africa and other areas to a supposed land bridge across the Bering Strait. But then all of the ones besides the Equus became extinct because I guess the Equus was more suited to its environment. So now we only have the Equus, but all these were living together at some point in time. And fossil evidence speaking wise, you find a lot of the older fossils in North America because that's where they originally evolved from. There's also some in other parts of the world. There was one called the Hagerman horse, and it was found in Idaho, and that's an older form of the Equus. And also in northern Las Vegas, Nevada, there have been found multiple horses, and those were the Equus scotti, which is the Equus, but a different breakoff species that was slightly smaller than that. And in the Canadian Yukon, this is a very important discovery around 2003, they found an old form of the Equus, but they were actually able to get some DNA out of it and sequence its genes. And it's currently the oldest genes that they've been able to sequence, unless something's happened since then. But at 2003 was the oldest. And it's really been a benchmark in the evolution of horses because it's over 500,000 years old, and they're able to get some genetic material off of it. But probably the most crucial find recently was in Germany in roughly 2013. They found, it wasn't the Equus, it was a Eurohippus, which isn't listed on this board, but it's an earlier common ancestor with the Equus. And it was a fully preserved pregnant female. So they were able to look at her, and she had 4 toes on each of her front limbs and then 3 on each of the back, and she was also pregnant at the time. So looking through her uterus and kind of her reproductive system, they were able to tell that actually the Equus and the modern horse share a lot in common with the Eurohippus and the horse of the past. And that's pretty much the fossil evidence that's a lot of this is based on.
Along with those changes, a lot of the primitive horses, well, all of them, they lived in foresty areas, and which was much better suited, and that's why they had the 4 in the front, 3 on their hind legs, toe-wise at least, and that's because the land was much looser and there were a lot more leaves and stuff, so having the multiple toes helped them be more agile and more mobile and more stable in that type of area. And also with their size, they were like the size of a fox, very small, and they ate a lot of berries and stuff, so that changed their anatomy with their teeth and mouth, like their snout size and digestive systems. And also the big change factor was climate. The climate became much cooler, and this caused a lot of the forests to deplete, and so many of the horses had to move and resort to living in grasslands, which is what caused the horses that had the 4 in the front, 3 in the back, they were not as suited for that environment because the grasslands had much harder ground. And so what happened was, through evolutionary changes, the hooves, the horse's weight began to, instead of being focused on all 4, I guess 7 toes if you count front and back on each side, it's now focused on 1, and that's their 3rd toe. So that's why they, like in the Equus, you see they only have 1 toe, and that's because it helps them with the 1. If you have the multiple toes on a hard ground, it's much more difficult to move quicker because you have more things to move, and with the 1, they can move much faster, be more agile, and they also, with their shift to the grasslands, they changed their diet, obviously, and they began eating leaves and grass and stuff like that, which changed a lot of other things.
Yeah, so the climate was a cool spell, caused them to change their food source, which led to them to change their teeth. Originally, like 55 million years ago, it was like a real small, flat, like cup teeth because they ate a lot of fruit. And then as the climate sort of changed, got cooler, they had to move to like they started eating more leaves, in which they need like tougher, bigger teeth. So the teeth got a little bit bigger. You got like a little bit sharper tooth, so they could grind up the leaves better. And then about 18 million years ago, they were like molar teeth began to like get these cement, so like a tooth enamel around it, because they moved to eating grass, which had a lot of silica in it, which wore down their teeth a lot. So they got the cement teeth, and they continue to get bigger and more sharper, better suited for the grass. And then about 10 million years ago, it's like it was still at this time, like when they went to the grass, there was still ones eating leaves. So the ones that were still eating leaves, they there's little trees around. At this point, they disappeared. So this led to the horses like teeth like close to the equus. So they continue to get like, more sharper, more stronger, and more durable teeth.
Okay, and back to the hoof. Several species like mentioned in here, like the Hyracotherium, Mesohippus, and Polyhippus, they all started out with 3 to 5 toes, but as time passed by and through evolutionary changes, we basically led up to the equus where they have a single-toed hoof, which that also led to the changing environment from the forest environment to the open grassland, prairie type environment. For example, the Hypohippus that also had 3 toes, and that is kind of beneficial for them because in the forest, in the forest environment, they just try to kind of nibble, prance around in the forest area and nibble the trees and everything, and then the equus, like as that came along, it was more on the open grasslands where it was able to kind of prance around and flee predators. The hoof was developed so it could flee from predators and also be able to kind of get to the grass areas more. Let's see. Also, the neck was another aspect is affected in the horse evolution from again going back to the change in environment and how they need to be as long in the forest environments or that setting because it didn't have to reach as much as it would in the open environments. So yeah.
And all this, the changing environment went hand in hand with a lot of stuff. As their food source changed and as their environment changed, their legs grew a lot longer so they could run faster. And of course they got the hooves and their skulls got bigger and their jaws became longer so they could better suited to graze on the grassland. And just their overall size, they got bigger and heavier so it was more suited to running around on the plains than would be maneuvering through a forest. And a quick look at the horse embryo. Like all mammals, it forms an amniotic sac and that is a live birth. And it's kind of hard to distinguish this from like any other embryo you'd find. But in a horse embryo, it's hard to look at the older ones because there's no real species you can compare to now. But in the modern horse, the hooves, including like the sole and the frog, is completely formed by 60 days in the uterus. And that is pretty much everything we have for you.
Well, also, but we have like the anatomy of the modern hoof, and so this is like just the single-toed one, and they have a bunch of different aspects to it and bones and and things. Obviously, like their pedal bone is the major bone that holds almost all of the weight, and the laminae connects the hoof wall to the pedal bone. The digital cushion is the one that absorbs all the shock and stuff, and like when it's running, because it's a lot of weight pounding on a very hard surface. The coronary band is a very strong and internal structure, and all of the hoof, basically, like this diagram is just showing you, like even though it did go from the 4 to the 3, you would think that it would be more beneficial to have more toes, because see, we have 5 and we do fine, but with the horse, it's better for all of its weight to be concentrated on one small area because it's actually much quicker to move. And like if you look at a dog, they run extremely quick and they do have multiple toes, but their pads and just like their feet in general are typically much smaller than their body. whereas we have, I guess, kind of bigger feet for our body. And so this is just showing you like all of the different anatomy behind it and that it's concentrated in one area and all of its factors.
And then I forgot to touch on something with the teeth. As they moved to the grass, they actually changed the mechanism how they chewed. Like instead of going from like up and down, they moved to like a more like rotational circular motion to help grind the teeth better. So that was another adaptation they did to help save the teeth from being so weighed down all the time.
So the summary of horse evolution is basically that everything about the horse changed because its environment changed, and that's ultimately due to the changing climate at the time. I guess is the best way to summarize it. Is there any questions, concerns?
Great, so just for clarification, so they always had hooves, right? Even on all the toes. Why did they develop hooves in the first place? Like,
Oh wait, no. When they had like multiple toes, it wasn't.
It wasn't like a hoof.
It was just like normal toes, like.
oh, so they
padding
didn't have like,
Was it like a
giant
paw?
toenails
Mhm.
or
So
like
It-
how did that have
It'd be like a
developed?
paw. And then, so imagine like you're here, okay, and you're walking and you're doing your thing. But then you get to the plains, you don't need the side to side as much because they're not trying to maneuver and go over the soft land. So they started to put more weight on the middle of their foot, okay. And then the more and more they did that, the more their weight got concentrated to the center and the center. So these stuff kind of went away, and it just focused on the middle one and all that weight. So as these other appendages kind of diminished, that one became stronger and more padded and more like encased. So that one toe it would be turned into the hoof they have today.
Okay.
That leads me to my, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
So is it that it lost all the toes but one, or did all the toes?
All the
fuse?
toes
Basically, the side
Fused.
toes.
Fused.
They fused into
They didn't
one.
lose them, no.
Is that-
and we're
That's
still-
what goes into all of these bones in the hoof that we
You
have.
see that
The,
embryologically?
Today.
like the navicular bone right here,
Yeah.
it still has like the same basic structure, like we talked about in class between the vat and all the whale and everything.
Yeah, it's got all.
It still has that. It's just kind of all shrunk up and diminished, and there's only just one
Okay.
main bone right here that's left.
Do you see that embryologically? Does it have 5 toes embryologically that fuse, or does it by that? I don't know. You know the answer.
I agree with you. I don't know. I just know that there's a full hoof that's visible by 60 days. I don't know kind of how that originates from.
I have one other question. Go ahead.
Okay, so at what point on the tree did the hooves develop? You might have already said that.
Was it like a transitional figure that had like creepy little half of toes?
Well, what happened with the toes is, so you'll see they have the 4, and what happened is when the weight, like you can see it here, they have the 4, and then what happens is over time, throughout the phylogenetic tree and stuff, all the bones didn't come together and stay down. They went up, if that makes sense. So like, if you would see here, they had like, it shows you the 4, and then you can see like the 3 stays here, and then 2, and then 1, and they
So the
move
support's
up
still
to
there,
all
it's just-
support the 1. But then many parts of the 4 is in the base of the hoof, but the major toes itself move up into the limb, which also causes the limb to get longer,
That makes sense.
making the horse body bigger, or else it'd just be some creepy little small thing with very long limbs.
But yeah, there wasn't really one with both.
So that is actually that top diagram, right? The horse,
Yes,
the first bend in its back leg. That's
this would be this,
elbow.
this,
No, yeah.
What are you
What is
talking
that?
about?
Or is that its wrist?
which,
Like it goes like this. Boom, boom, boom.
like this nub,
Yeah, the
Back
bend.
here?
That bend is its wrist, right?
yeah, like it helps it move. Is that what you're saying?
No, like it's actually backwards from like our rear legs bend like this,
Yeah,
but it looks like their rear leg
They
legs bend
do.
like that. But that's
they
its,
go like this
but
instead
that's
of
actually its wrist, right?
like this.
I can't say that with certainty.
I
It
think
has
it's-
I
a
don't
wrist.
know,
It has.
but that's
it
what it would
moves
look
here
like.
and it moves here.
So it's the elbow.
Yeah, it would be the elbow, and this would be the
But
wrist.
isn't the elbow further up?
On a horse?
Yeah, isn't the elbow up near the belly?
I,
So it's.
I
the-
couldn't tell
the
you with
legs-
certainty.
The legs still go like this.
They go
Hip,
backwards.
knee,
Yeah.
elbow, hip, knee, wrist, toes, right? You know what I'm saying?
I feel like you're putting it in extra joint somewhere.
So there's a hip.
No, I know what you're saying. It's the hip and then,
Like,
but
look
it
at
goes
your
like
leg.
this,
Bend
not
your
like
leg.
this.
Like
Yeah.
the horse is doing it.
Yeah, but it goes the opposite way, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it goes the same way, but it's got really long toes like that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, because, well, I mean,
So
do you
the
mean like
wrist-
how the toes
It's
went
like they
up?
almost have like an extra bend where at the hoof.
They do, but the bend at the hoof is the toes, and then the bend way up is the wrist.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like this is toes, the hoof.
Yeah,
And then this would be the wrist. And then this would be the
knee, or the elbow.
elbow.
Yeah.
And then you're saying up here would be the hip.
I'm saying, if you look at a horse's leg, it looks like it bends opposite than it should.
Yeah, I see what you're
But
saying.
what you're saying is a knee is actually a wrist. You follow me?
Yes.
Because that's where the
Yeah.
things go up to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, kind of like in a dog, that little thing right here?
Yeah.
That's kind of like
So that means
the thumb,
its
basically.
toes are
It's right
really
there.
long.
Except those bones get a lot strengthened over
Follow
time.
me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like the toes start here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
And that like protrusion is
But like
where
here.
Your legs actually don't bend opposite the way they
It's
should.
so awkward.
right here,
It's just
a lot of
shifted
hip is,
up.
it
Yeah.
says like the third toe to the manly state.
Yeah.
It's right here, and it still has this.
So that's the
second
wrist
and the
up there.
fourth
Yeah, like
toe.
Yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
wrist way up top.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say when the toes go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have one other question. So, I don't know if this is just, the horse is the only animals that gallop? Like gallop means all 4 feet are off the ground at once.
What is, I mean,
I mean,
okay, so
that's
zebras
how
don't count.
dogs run.
But do they truly gallop?
No, don't they do every other one?
Yeah.
They have 2
Horses
feet
do
on the
every
ground.
other one, yeah. I mean, dogs.
But horses, when they're galloping, there's a
They
point where all 4 feet
all
are
will be
on,
off
which would mean you're coming down with the force of your entire body
On
four
those.
sticks.
at once,
Yeah.
which means you would need something very concentrated
support.
and hard. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're running like a dog
You
does
can have
this.
multiple things to
You can have, you
propel
don't
you.
need that kind of protection.
I have no clue.
No, it was just the thought.
But I mean, it
It
makes
just
sense
sounds
though,
like-
because they would need like a really
You've
hard.
got 1,000
surface.
pounds coming down on
That, if you, and
Digits.
like, that's why if you look at the anatomy, this entire thing is for cushion.
protects it, yeah.
Yeah.
They may be the only, I think alligators can gallop too, but they can't do
Really?
it like a horse, yeah.
Can otters?
I don't know.
Well,
It may
otters
not
run
be a
on
true
land and they
gallop.
move fast.
I mean, a true gallop means a certain thing.
Yeah.
You know, versus a trot and a run. Anyway,
Any other questions?
I'll ask Mr. Google. What animals gallop? No, thank you.